Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Asid Raja Sarvabhauma Surasene Shuvaindripa Kshetraketur iti kyato Yasyasit kamatun mahi. Dear Lord, Shukadeva Goswami, although Vrtrasura was a sinful demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. Sri Sutta Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent question, Shukadeva Goswami, the most powerful sage, began answering his disciple with great affection. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, I shall speak to you the same history I have heard from the mouths of Vyasadeva, Narada, and Devala. Please listen with attention. O King Parikshit, in the province of Surasena, there was a king named Chitraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities of life. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here, the most significant statement is that the earth completely produced all the necessities of life during the time of King Chitraketu. As stated in Ishopanishad, Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kasya svidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Krishna, the Supreme Controller, has created the material world, which is completely perfect and free from scarcity. The Lord supplies the necessities of all living entities. These necessities come from the earth, and thus the earth is the source of supply. When there is a good ruler, that source produces the necessities of life abundantly. However, when there is not such good ruler, there will be scarcity. This is the significance of the word Kamaduk. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Kaman Vavarsha Parjanya Sarva Kamaduk Gamahi. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of men in profusion. We have experienced that in some seasons the rains produce abundance, and in other seasons there is scarcity. We have no control over the earth's productiveness, for it is naturally under the full control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By His order, the Lord can make the earth produce sufficiently or insufficiently. If a pious king rules the earth according to the Shastric injunctions, there will naturally be regular rainfall and sufficient produce to provide for all men. There will be no question of exploitation, for everyone will have enough. Black marketeering and other corrupt dealings will then automatically stop. Simply ruling the land cannot solve man's problems unless the leader has spiritual capabilities. He must be like Maharaj Yudhisthira, Parikshit Maharaj, or Ramchandra. Then all the inhabitants of the land will be extremely happy. O King Parikshit, in the province of Surasena there was a king named Chitraketu who ruled the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities of life. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 14, entitled King Chitraketu's Lamentation, text 11, or text 10. Shukadeva Goswami, in this verse, is beginning to answer the question of Maharaj Parikshit. How is it that such a personality, that Vrtrasura, who was the embodiment of sinful activities, who was in the association of the most cruel-hearted, demoniac people, and who caused so much terror, fear, and pain to others. How could such a person speak such perfect knowledge of devotion to God? And how could such a person, at the end of his life, be so perfectly exemplary and saintly? This is a wonder within this world. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand why a person would be born with an incredible capacity of intelligence, healthy body, wonderful family, and another person is born retarded, in poverty, with all sorts of physical handicaps. Is this just some random chance that some people get it, some soul gets it good and some gets it bad? Or is God partial? These mysteries are understood when we comprehend the eternality of the soul. The soul does not born at the time of the birth of a body. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yogaram chara tata deham yata deham taram praptir dhirastatra namuyate. The soul is passing through all the various stages of the body, infancy, childhood, youth, and old age. And Krishna says in Gita, similarly, at the time of death, the soul passes into another body. This is called the transmigration of the soul. The laws of karma, or cause and effect, are such that for every action, there is an equal corresponding reaction. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. So whatever we are born with in this life and whatever comes upon us is very much affected by our activities, our desires, our attachments in our previous lives. Otherwise, without this philosophical principle, it is impossible to explain how things work within this world. This concept of reincarnation, of the transmigration of the soul, is not something simply created by man to answer questions that are utterly impossible to answer without it. But in the greatest historical, philosophical books of the Vedas, it is explained since time immemorial as the truth of how material nature works. So yes, how is it that Vrtrasura, he was born in a certain way, he only had certain associates his whole life. How could he have learned what he knew? How could he have been so absolutely pure and saintly at the end of his life? Parikshit Maharaj is asking this question. As many of us in this world ask similar questions. Why is this happening to one person and something else is happening to another after all? The child, when they're just born, they're not acting anyway. They don't know how to act. They don't know how to speak. So what karma could they produce? Why are they suffering in infancy? It is due to activities in previous lives. Now, the nature of a devotee is not ever to say, you deserve it. You're suffering now because you have done certain things in this life or in previous lives. You deserve it, so it's none of my business. That's like a doctor. A person falls asleep when driving and gets in an accident, and his head is crushed, and comes to the doctor and said, I didn't tell you to fall asleep. It's your business. That's the lesson you have to learn. No, doesn't matter if he fell asleep or not. The doctor's business is to make the patient right and to feel for the pain of the patient. It seems like a contradiction, because philosophically we understand that suffering is due to our previous actions, previous immoral actions. Joys and happiness in this world are due to our previous pious actions. So we get what we create. Man creates his or her own destiny. But yet a Vaishnava, a real devotee, is paradukadukhi, suffers to see other people suffering. So a devotee doesn't blame. You did this, you suffer, that's your business. A devotee thinks, whatever the reason for your suffering, because you're suffering, because you're my brother, my sister, it is my business to help you in every possible way. But a devotee's way of showing this compassion or help is to try to be complete. Not only to try to help alleviate the immediate effect of suffering, but also through guiding a person spiritually, through helping that person learn how, within their own life, to erase all the other sinful reactions that they're about to appear in due course of time. And also to teach a person the proper life by which there will be no more sinful reactions. It will be even beyond pious actions. We were discussing the other day from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu One of the qualities of pure devotional service, characteristics, is kleshagni. It relieves material distress. There's papam, there's sinful activities. From sinful activities, there's prarabdha, which means manifested reactions. The reactions that are actually on us now. We may be sick. We may be under some litigation. We may be emotionally being attacked. So many ways. But there's also aprarabdha, the unmanifested sinful reactions. The sinful reactions that are stored and just waiting to become manifest. And from that from the aprarabdha there is the kutam. There is the inclination or proclivity to engage in those same actions again. Just like if a person drinks alcohol or takes drugs or has illicit sex, there is going to be a reaction to that. It's going to come crashing down in due course of time. But even before that reaction comes, every time you do it, your inclination, your addiction to that activity increases. Yes? You need it more. You want it more. You become weaker to resist it every time you give in. Why is it that some people, it's so difficult to resist immoral activities? They're practically obsessed by them. And other people can just say, no, it's not right, and not do it. And other people are just tormented, even though they're trying. They're just screaming internally, externally, I don't want to do it, but kama esha, krodha esha, it's just dragging me away. What is that due to? It is due to the fact that in the past, that person had the power to resist, but didn't make that choice. And every time you make the power to give in to those weaknesses, you become weaker. And the power of that urge becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Your inclination becomes insatiable. And then that manifests into bijam, specific desires. And those desires drive us to again speak or engage in those immoral activities, and that another papam, sinful activities, and the cycle keeps going around and around and around. But when we render loving service to the Lord, when we chant the holy names of the Lord, when we gain a taste for hearing the beautiful glories and teachings of the Lord, those activities are divya. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvata. Tyaktva deham punarajanma naiti mam eti sorajana. Krishna tells in 4th chapter of Gita, one who understands the transcendental nature of my activities, my teachings, never takes birth in this material world again. Because these activities are pure. They purify our heart. They are neither moral or immoral. They are above the two. They are above karma altogether. And they eradicate karma. Actually, when the sound vibration and when the service attitude enters the heart, the Lord is so pleased. The Lord is so pleased that it eradicates the inclinations for sinful activities. It eradicates the desires for sinful activities. And it eradicates the reactions of sinful activities. So if we really want to be compassionate to another, not only will they help them, with the immediate tragedy or difficulty that they may be undergoing. But we also try to guide the soul in such a way that it doesn't keep happening again and again and again. And the ultimate compassion is to teach a person about the eternal existence of who they are and the relationship with the all-attractive, all-loving, all-beautiful God, Krishna. So, a devotee doesn't blame anyone for what they're doing, but they understand the science of what's happening, but they try to help. Like that famous story where Srila Prabhupada was on the veranda in Mayapur and he saw these poor children in poverty who were fighting with one another over scraps in the garbage dump to somehow or other get something to eat. And the devotee saw Prabhupada was crying. There were tears in his eyes. He wasn't philosophically saying, let them suffer, they deserve it. Rather, he said, let them eat. From this day on, within so many square miles of all of our temples, we should have free prasadam so that people can have nice prasad. Now, they're not only eating food, but they're eating prasad. The prasad awakens. It alleviates their sinful reactions because it's sanctified food, and it awakens their bhakti. But it also solves their problem of hunger. That is complete welfare. Bharata bhumite hoila manusya janma jara janma sarataka kara kara para upakar. Lord Chaitanya ordered everyone in India, you have been given so much. First, take it. Most people in India, they've been given so much spiritual, but they're just leaving it all behind, chasing after other things. Take what you've been given and distribute it to the world. That is the highest welfare. When Prabhupada came to the West in 1965, he was asked, Swamiji, why have you come here? Prabhupada said, I have come to remind you of what you have forgotten. That you are an eternal soul. And that your real happiness is in loving God. It's within you, but you have forgotten. So Parikshit Maharaj, like everybody else in the world, is wondering about this mystery. How is it that somebody is engaging in activities which are so foreign to the way they're supposed to be according to their situation? Or some people may say, why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? That's really the case with Vrtrasura. He seemed like a really bad person. Why he went back to Godhead? Why did the best thing happen to the worst person? That's more or less what he's asking. The traditional question. And Shukadev Goswami, in order to answer this question carefully, and actually in order to answer the question of anybody's life, of why they are, what they are, and who they are, you have to go back into previous lives also. Now, it's not that we need to know our previous lives. It's actually completely unnecessary. Some people, they go into hypnosis and they start talking about what they did when they were little children and what they did in their previous life and in their life before that and their life before that. What's really important is we understand the principles. If we understand the principles, it's unimportant to know the details. Some people say, if you sinned in your last life, well, why, if you don't remember what you did, why should you have to suffer? Is that fair? You should be able to press a button and just, log in to the website that tells you why you're suffering this reaction in your past life. But it's unimportant. You may by some karmic situation be able to understand exactly what you did, why you did, where you were. But if you understand philosophically, we understand the principle. I must have done something that's caused this. So the real thing, I'm not going to do those. I'm not going to act immorally anymore. It's like many of our brahmacharis, they sleep with mosquito nets. In fact, it's the law of the ashram. It's one of the good nets. There's internet, there's television networks and radio networks, and there's net profit. For the brahmacharis, there's mosquito net. But it's very, very nice. Because brahmacharis get malaria, as so many of the others do. It's very severe, but it's kind of like a common cold in India to get malaria. If you go to the West and you say to somebody, I got malaria. That's what all the soldiers were dying in the Suez Canal of malaria. It's really horrifying. But in India, you tell somebody he has malaria, he says, oh, okay. What else is new, But we know why we get malaria. From mosquito, yes? You don't get it from eating too much halava. From mosquito. Now, okay, you have malaria. And if you're a very philosophical person, a questioning person, challenging person, doctor, I will not take this medicine until you tell me which mosquito bit me. I want to see that mosquito. I want to know what date he bit me, what time he bit me, and which part of my body he bit me, and where I was when he bit me. And I want to know his motivation also. Now, will the doctor be able to tell you any of these things? Will anybody be able to tell you any of these things? It's inconceivable. But the principle, you understand. I was bit by a mosquito. I don't know which one, I don't know where, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I was bit by a mosquito. So you take the medicine, and then you sleep with a mosquito net. So there's less chance that you'll get bit by another mosquito. That is why we have mosquito nets. For protection. So similarly, we don't have to know what happened in our previous lives. But we know the principle. If they're suffering, that means I did something to cause harm to someone. So let me never cause harm to anyone. That is intelligence. Shukadeva Goswami is now beginning with this verse, the past life of Vrtrasura. He was a great king named Chitraketu of the province of Surasena. And he was such a pious king, such a religious king, in the true sense, that the world was flourishing. Now, this is also a very, very important mystery of life. Because people are really trying to solve the problems. Now, there's various ways of solving problems. One is by treating the symptom, and one is by going to the root of the disease. If you have boils on your body, you treat the symptoms by putting various compresses on it and various medications to bring it to a head and to drain it and all that, and there's relief. But they're going to keep coming if there's an infection within the blood. So the root cause is to go to the blood, and simultaneously you have to deal with the symptoms. Today, the modern civilization is at the best trying to solve problems in life by dealing with the symptoms, by trying to relieve the symptoms. But what is the root cause? Yes, the ozone is breaking down, and the ultraviolet rays of the sun are not getting filtered properly, and it's creating more heat in the planet. And then there is this whole greenhouse effect due to so many pollutions. I was speaking with Shamsundar Prabhu, my dear, very, very dear godbrother, recently. And he is a geologist, and very proficient also. He has personally he's discovered and excavated some of the greatest mines of the world for jewels. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, lapis lazulis, all these things. He makes millions, but he always loses it all. Because he loves to do what he's doing, but he's not a business person. Because when you get into that, people want to cheat you. And he's so loving and innocent and good-hearted that people cheat him. But he knows the science, and he's updated. He told me that some of the top geologists and environmentalists have given a warning, specifically to the people of India. So please listen carefully. What they find is horrifying. In the peaks of the Himalayas, Himalaya means the abode of snow. Now, traditionally, snow is pure white. And I have actually seen it with my own eyes, but I never thought of it in these terms. I remember years ago when I would go to Himalayas, the peaks of the mountains were always just pure white. Now they're kind of grayish with a lot of black on it. What is that? Because in India, of the lack of concern to control various types of poisonous fumes and exhaust, and most of all, carbon dioxide. That carbon goes into the air and it falls on the Himalayan mountain peaks. Because they're getting grayish and blackish, the peaks, they attract more of the heat of the sun. Because they're attracting more of the heat of the sun is hotter, the Himalayan peaks are melting faster than ever. According to geologists, if India doesn't change its ecological, environmental systems, immediately they say, by the year 2050, there will be no river Ganges, no Ganga, and there will be no river Alaknanda, no river Yamuna. All these rivers will be dried up because they're all coming from the glaciers in the Himalayas. Those glaciers will be practically non-existent. They'll be melted. These rivers, Yamuna, Ganga, they are the source of water for practically the whole of North India. Take that away, massive drought. massive problems. Civilization, as you know, in India will be chaos of shortage. So, try to solve the problem. Put proper, catalytic converters that help to filter the exhaust fumes out of the cars, and put regulations on the factories about the waste that they're emitting. That's nice. But that's not enough. The root cause is within the heart of human society. The root cause is a lack of self-control due to greed. That's all. Because people have insatiable greed, they do not care what their profits do to other people's lives. They don't even care about the legacy they're creating for the future generations of the world. Because they're so caught up with the passion of greed and pride and prestige and all of these other things. Lust, envy, anger, pride, greed, illusion. These 6 anarthas are the root causes of all the problems of the world. And unless we clean up and purify the ecology of our hearts, whatever good we do for the world is symptomatic. Very important. So we find here, Chitraketu, he was a good king. He was ruling the world in such a way that everyone was happy. We cannot even conceive of this. A ruler making people happy? Very difficult. Why? Because the ruler, yadyaracharati srestas tattat evete rojana sayat pramanam kurute lokasthanuvartate. Not only is the ruler setting an example, but he's teaching the way to live in harmony with the laws of God. God has created this material existence, and God has created laws. The law of gravity, the law of karma. To live in harmony with the will of God is to go beyond the laws of karma. When we please Krishna, it's like watering the root of the tree. It actually solves the problems. Bhagavad Gita tells, Anad bhavanti bhutani parajanyad anasambhavad jagyat bhavati parajanyo jagya karma samudbhava. This is the law of economics according to Bhagavad Gita. That all living beings subsist on food that is generated by the earth. Grains, fruits, vegetables. All these food grains, the whole supply, is dependent on rain. Can any scientist in their laboratories create rain? We see rain is such an important part of life. Sometimes in cities we don't understand it because we buy food from a store, the marketplace. We don't understand what goes into it. Yes? Just like these flowers that all these young ladies are making. They just buy the flowers, as many as they want. They just buy, and make nice garlands for Radha Gopinath and everybody else. It's very nice. But if you had to grow your own flowers, you would understand the value of each flower so much more. You need fertile soil. You need rain. You need pest control. So many things. Then you're conscious of what it takes for a flower. We're cooking sabjis, we're eating rice. But if actually we were living a more agrarian lifestyle, we would understand, without rain, I don't eat. Hare Krishna. It's very important. Rain is all important. Man cannot live without rain. Even animals cannot live without rain. Life cannot exist on this earth without rain. The fish in the ocean, they can live without rain. They are aloof. That is their karma. They don't need rain. But they're going to evolve to another species where they need rain. So ultimately they do need rain. So rain is such an important thing. The Native American Indians, one of their greatest religious activities is the rain dance. We also dance. They dance specifically to petition the Lord, the rain god, Indra, to give rains. And we read even in 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Nanda Maharaj was going to perform Indra Puja, which is basically an equivalent to the rain dance. It's more sophisticated, maybe more philosophical, but they were performing a whole puja because they're farmers, they're Vaishyas, they need the rains. Without the rains, there's no grass, the cows die, there's no milk. Without rain, you can't even till the fields. Nothing can grow. It's devastation. By watering the root of the tree, all parts of the tree are satisfied. That is what Govardhan Puja in Srimad Bhagavatam represents. Krishna tells Ananda Maharaj, and he tells the whole world, there's really no need to worship the rain god Indra. If you worship the supreme god, it's like watering the root of the tree. All of the other devatas, all of the other superintending gods are automatically satisfied. So just worship me. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishami masuja. Chitraketu was such a good king. What is that verse in 3rd chapter of Gita? Anad Bhavan, what? No. Jagya. What is the first two words? Jagya shishta shanashyanto muchantes. The one that ends Esha Kamaduk. Sahajagya shashrishta purovacha prajapati. Anena prashavishyadvam Esha voshvishtu Kamaduk. Krishna says, at the beginning of creation, I have created all living beings. I have created generations of demigods and human beings and everyone else. But at the very beginning of creation, I also set forth the system of yajna. Spiritual offerings of sacrifice. And said, through this offering, I will provide for you everything. That is the Lord's promise. If we simply live in harmony and gratitude to the Lord for what He gives and not exploit or misuse, there will be unlimited abundance. Srila Prabhupada explained, the real problem in this world is not population explosion. The real problem is what the population's doing. Because it's very complex. They have abortion which is very nicely called family planning, where you remove the excess tissue to make it sound very sattvic. But too much population, and therefore there's too much shortage. So we'll have abortion. And the governments will promote it and even facilitate it to keep the population down. This is apparently symptomatic. But if we look deeper into the situation, that's a human life within the womb. You're killing it. There is immense karma, sinful karma, in doing that. Now, you may have one less birth, but you're creating all that karma within the earth, within this world. Some countries, 1/3 of children are killed in the womb. Some even more than that. That means hundreds of millions every year. And that accumulated karma is going to affect how the whole world is working. There's going to be shortage, there's going to be all sorts of calamities and everything else. It's not just because of not proper management of exhaust on cars that all this is happening. It's a combination of all the karmas. If we live piously, morally, in harmony with the will of God, and Mother Nature is connected to Father, God. Everything Mother Nature is creating, her children are meant to use it according to her purpose. If we use it for our own purpose, independent of her purpose, then she's not going to give it so much. So yes, there are many, many very serious disorders within society today. My father's from Chicago. He talked to me the other day. In January, now Chicago in January. Have any of you ever been in Chicago in January? I spent 18 Januaries in Chicago. And as soon as I graduated high school at the age of 18, which is the age in America you graduate high school, there's 12 standards in high school. I went to Florida, which is called the Sunshine State, for college. Not because I liked the college, but I liked the weather. Because snow, when I was a little boy, the snow would be up to my knees or my waist. So much snow. January, absolutely freezing cold. And a massive wind they called the hawk just comes blowing off this lake. It's a gigantic lake. You can't see the end of it. It's like an ocean. And it's solid ice during the winter. And this ice wind is just pouring off. It's going right through your body. Very difficult. Every January. But the nice thing you look forward to is the springs in Chicago are very nice. The snow melts. And flowers bloom and fruits grow on the trees, and then the sun comes out and everybody's very happy. Well, my father told me in January, it was sunny. There was no snow. People weren't wearing winter coats. People were wearing t-shirts outside. It was so nice. They were thinking, this is wonderful. Winter's finished. But then spring, which means April, there was massive snowstorms. Massive snowstorms. Now that's pretty bad, because when crops start growing, if there's frost or ice, they're finished for the rest of the year. You have nice weather, everything starts growing, the buds grow, the fruits grow, the grains grow, then there's frost, it's all killed. Mass loss of money, mass loss of facility. What's happening to this world? So inconsistent. Tsunamis and hurricanes and cyclones and earthquakes. You cannot separate it from the activities of human society. When Maharaj Chitraketu was king, he was so absolutely pious and religious that the whole world had everything they wanted. Not just because he was, but because he inspired everyone else to be. And he treated every citizen as praja, as his own child. Therefore, everyone felt protected, everyone felt inspired. There was practically no sinful activities going on in the world. Why? Because everyone was content, everyone was happy, everyone was God conscious. And Mother Earth was providing everything, and more. Therefore, Prabhupada says here there was no need for black marketeering. Because all these things like mafia and black marketeering and everything comes when there's greed. Greed comes when there's want. Now, it's not that if you have what you want, there's no greed. Because there's millionaires and billionaires who are greedy as anything. They want more and more and more. Greed, like lust, is like fire. It's never satisfied. Greed is never satisfied by getting more. It's just aggravated. You want 1 lakh of rupees? If you get 1 lakh, you'll want 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then you'll want crores. And then even if you have 1 billion crores, you'll want power, you'll want prestige, you'll want so many other things. Because you're just content. That's the problem. If we find contentness in our heart, then we can work enthusiastically, but we're satisfied. There's no need to cheat. There's no need to exploit. The rich people do more exploitation than the poor people. Hare Krishna. That's not because of shortage, it's because of greed. But when the king, like Chitraketu, is setting a good example, people are satisfied. Simple living and high thinking. Then there's really peace. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Real peace. Now, what Shukadev Goswami is doing here is so skillful. First, he's explaining what a perfect king Chitraketu was. His whole kingdom loved him. His whole kingdom adored him. His whole kingdom lived in harmony with what he was giving them. And everyone was in opulence. There was plenty of jewels. There was plenty of food. There was plenty of silks. There was beautiful regulation and weather. Everything was nice. And he was loved and adored. But the next verse, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, I'm leaving tonight. But I'll give you a preview of the next verse, because this verse is just setting us up for the next verse. First he's telling how wonderful everything was and how wonderful he was. But the next verse tells how absolutely miserable he was. Hare Krishna. Now this is very, very important. Because whoever we are, we're never the controller. And that's the problem. We're trying to be happy in this world. We're just not the controllers. We'd like to be. The devotees don't like to be. But that propensity is there. We are always controlled by higher powers. Whether you're the king or the president, or whether you're the father or the mother, or whether you're the wealthiest man on earth, you're controlled by higher powers. Controlled by time. Growing old, where you have to lose everything. There's so many ways we're being controlled. We have so much, the more you get your way, the more it's painful when you don't get your way. Yes? Just like if everything you try just doesn't work. If something else doesn't work, it's no big deal. But everything you're doing, you're like the Midas touch person. Everything's just working so nicely. If something doesn't work, it's intolerable. How could this happen to me? Why? The king had all wealth. He was young, beautiful. He had perfect health. He had beautiful wives. He was loved and adored by all of his citizens. He was eating fine foods. And not only that, he didn't even have to worry about a next election. Because he was king for life. People honored him as the representative of God until he chose to give his kingdom to one of his children. He was there. There was nothing to fear. He had everything that anyone in this world could possibly dream of beyond anybody's expectations. He was the king of the earth. But just one thing he didn't have: a son. He wanted a son. He felt obliged to his forefathers to entrust in due course of time the throne to a son in his genealogical line. Now, King Chitraketu, it wasn't like everything's going so well, everything's going absolutely perfect. It's just I don't have a son. So it's bearable. Just thank God for all the good things and be happy. Yes? It doesn't work that way. If you have a million things going right, if one thing's go wrong, you can't even think about the things that go right sometimes. Yes? An example. Your body's really healthy. Yes? Your brain's functioning nicely. You have 20/20 vision. Your ears, you could hear everything. There's no ringing in your ears, and you could hear very nicely everything that's going on, even kirtans and bhajans and Bhagavatam classes. And you could smell so nice. And you can taste, and you have nice food, and you have a nice wife who's cooking so nicely for you, and your children are very well behaved and obedient, and they're getting good grades, and they all love Krishna, and they like to worship the deities in your house, and they're always, asking you to tell stories about Krishna and Ram. And your business, it's just flourishing. It's just growing and growing and growing. Everything's so nice. And I do my exercises and my walks, and all my limbs are very good. And other devotees I see, they get up on their backs, but my back is very nice. And none of my hair is falling out yet. I still have all my teeth, and they don't hurt. They're not causing me pain or anything, right? Very nice. But then you're walking, and a thorn goes in your foot. Deep in your foot. right? Or even if there's no thorn. You're just walking in the Vrindavan garden and you hit your toe against one of the bricks. Now what do you think about? Yes? If a thorn goes in your foot, how big is that hole? Can you measure it? Maybe how many millimeters is a hole? Yes? Hardly a centimeter. And yet your body is so many meters. Yes? And just 1 little centimeter is pain. And where does your whole consciousness go? When that thorn is in your foot, are you thinking about how nice my eyesight is? When that thorn is stabbed in that 1 little centimeter of space in your foot, the bottom part of your body, are you thinking about, my teeth are so nice, and I don't have any toothaches or anything like that? No, you're suffering miserably. You're crying. All your concentration. That's the way material nature works. You can have everything, but if one thing goes wrong, that could make, it's like a big pot of sweet rice. And you put a teaspoon of sand in it. It spoils the taste of everything. So the question is, in this material existence, which is more prominent, pleasure or pain? You can have all kinds of pleasure, but one pain will spoil it all. But if you have all kinds of pains, one pleasure, you won't even notice it. Yes? Does that make sense? Yes? If you have that thorn in your foot, it's really, really painful. It's going right in. And someone gives you a gulab jamun. Can you enjoy it? No, you can't enjoy it. You're too obsessed with the pain. But if you have 100 gulab jamuns and the thorn goes in your foot, you can't enjoy the gulab jamuns. So pain has prominence over pleasure in this world. That is just a reality. One thing goes wrong could create havoc in your life. And that is Chitraketu Maharaja's story. He has everything. But ultimately the world is beyond our control. He tried so hard to have a son. I'm not going to go into details. But he really tried. It's not that he was just, praying for a son to descend. He was working hard. He married, and he was a fertile man. It wasn't that he was infertile. He was fertile. He had the power to have a son. And he'd marry a beautiful woman and make her queen. And then, whatever the formalities are. But he found out she was barren. After so many attempts. And he'd marry another queen, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. He married too many queens. For years. He was trying to have a son. And yet, none of them conceived. Not a single conception. Years were going by. And he was absolutely morose. He was the most miserable man on earth. And because he was miserable and everybody loved him in the kingdom, everyone was miserable. The whole world was miserable because he couldn't have a son. Hare Krishna. It's very symbolic. We cannot possibly comprehend how miserable he was. He felt like a total failure. And the male ego, it's really hard to feel like a total failure. And there was nothing he could do about it. He tried and tried again, but kept failing. And his wives were totally miserable because they couldn't help him. So some great sages, Angira Muni, headed by Angira Muni, they came to meet him. And they could have given him so many blessings. They saw how he was so downcast. What is wrong, King? What is wrong? And he was explaining how everything in the kingdom was going so nice. Everything was so perfect. But I have no son. And he prayed for only one benediction. He did not recite the Shikshastakam prayers either. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam vajagadisha kamaye mama janamani janmanishwari bhavatad bhaktirohaitaki tvai. Lord Chaitanya taught, what a pure heart prays to God. I do not want wealth. I do not want the pleasures of the opposite sex. I do not want followers, prestige, and power. I do not want to be seen as a great scholar. I do not even want liberation from suffering. My Lord, my only prayer is allow me to be your servant unconditionally, birth after birth after birth. Pure love is the ultimate prayer we can ask for. Chitraketu Maharaj, he knew the philosophy. He was a bit of a karmakandi, no doubt, but he knew. But he suffered so bad. The benediction he asked for was a son. Hare Krishna. He was given the benediction, you will have a son. And his name will be harsh-shok. Yes? Which means one who gives you both happiness and distress. Oh, the king was happy with that, because all sons give happiness and distress. Daughters give more happiness. Sons give more distress. That's what I've seen. By their behavior. Yes. You see, so many of our young girls, they all getting initiated and everything, but not too many of the boys. And some of them, Namananda Prabhu, but it's more red. Males are too egoistic and restless. And what is that saying for girls? Sugar and spice and everything nice. That is what little girls are made out of. But the next part, you want to hear what boys are made of? Frogs and snails. And pulling puppy dog tails. That's what little boys are made of. So, that's a famous poem. I'm just quoting. So, harsh-shok, very nice, very nice. I'll have a boy, he'll be mischievous and everything else, and he'll be playing cricket and, When he's supposed to be studying, he'll be watching cricket on television. and he'll be fighting with his friends. Very nice, very nice. But he wasn't expecting what was about to take place. Because the nature of this world is when you have something good, you could know for sure it will draw envy from others. And envious people try to destroy you. Either destroy what you have, or destroy what you've done, or destroy who you are, or destroy you. That is the nature of envy. And the greater anyone is in this world, inevitably envy must come. Look at politicians in big positions. Their opposition is trying to destroy them in every possible way. Tear them down because they want that position. If a person is rich, wealthy, how many people really adore them because they're wealthy? Most people envy them. And even people who come to praise you and say, you are doing so nice, you're so successful, there's oftentimes envy in their heart. They're saying, I congratulate you for your success. But in their mind they're thinking, but I hope you're destroyed. Hare Krishna. And usually family members are not envious of each other. But in Kali Yuga, even sometimes family members are envious of each other. Brothers and sisters and brothers, envy, fighting, breaking up the family. So one of Chitraketu's wives gave birth to a beautiful son. And he kind of lost control of his discrimination and just gave so much attention to that son and that wife that all his other wives who tried their best and failed were envious. They couldn't tolerate it. And any of these anarthas, whether it is lust or anger or pride, greed, envy, illusion, any of those anarthas within us, Indriyanam icharatam yanmano navatiyate tarasya harati pragya vayurnavam ivambasi. Any one of the senses the mind focuses can carry away a person's intelligence. These ladies loved their husband, but they were so envious of their co-wife that they actually made a conspiracy amongst each other to murder the baby. And they did. They poisoned the baby. And one day when the mother was coming to see the little baby child, he was just a limp corpse. She was wailing like a cow that had just lost her calf, beside herself, falling unconscious, weeping. The news came to Chitraketu Maharaj, who was just in an ocean of jubilation, that now everything was going right. Everything else plus a son. And when he heard that the son was dead, he was trying to make it to the bedroom of the mother, but he kept falling down unconscious, then getting up, then falling down unconscious, getting up, falling unconscious. After, with great effort, he came and saw the dead body of his own beloved son, the most dear thing in the whole creation to him. And there was nothing he could do to reverse it. It was done. He just fell to the ground unconscious. And when he finally came conscious, all he could do was scream and cry. From that day on, he could not rule the kingdom. He could not do anything. His entire consciousness was paralyzed by grief. He was absolutely dysfunctional, in misery. Now, he was in jubilation when he had his son, and he was misery when he lost the son. But which of the two was more intense? Misery is a more intense experience in this world. He couldn't do anything. Then Angira Muni returned, along with Narada Muni, just to see how the king now had a son. The benediction came. He wanted a son, he got a son. The king couldn't hear philosophy. He could not hear the philosophy. His mind was too distracted by his own grief. And this is a situation. If you're having too much success and pleasure in the world, your mind is too distracted from that to hear the truth. If you're suffering, sometimes you feel, I need to know the truth. One of the Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukratanora jana. One of the four types of people that approach God are those who are in distress. But when your distress is too much, you cannot even do that. All he wanted was his son back. So Narada Muni, by his mystic powers, he brought his son back to life. Haribo. And the son just looked up at his father and revealed to him what illusion he was in. So, I'm not this body. You think I'm your son? You think you're my father? Which father? I'm an eternal soul. I've had so many fathers. Don't you understand that the soul is eternal? I'm still alive, Father. You see, I'm still alive. And even if the body dies, I'm still alive. I'm part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It took the Son preaching to the Father to enlighten the Father. The Son said, this is my destiny. It's my destiny to die. Now let me go on with my destiny. I'm happy about it. With your blessings. Then the Son lay down and died. And the Father was enlightened. He heard the philosophy from his son, he heard the philosophy then from Narada Muni, and he became a completely purified saint. Transcendental. He was still king at that time. It's not that he neglected any of his responsibilities, but he did it with pure compassion for the soul of every living being. His heart was overflooded with love of God because he surrendered to God. There was no more sorrow in his life because he realized his own eternal nature and his relationship with the Supreme. And while he was traveling around, he happened to see Lord Shiva with Parvati. Shiva was speaking to great sannyasis, Babajis, and ascetics about renunciation, which is a very favorite topic for renunciates. And while he was speaking, his beautiful wife, Goddess Parvati, was sitting on his lap in his embrace. And he's talking to monks about renunciation. Think about that. I'm not going to try to give any parallel examples in our brahmacharya ashram. But we have had, I'm not going to mention the names of the grihastas either, because the tapes are probably very confidential. But we have had grihastas very good standing, from our own congregation and also from other parts of ISKCON, who have come and addressed the brahmachari ashram to tell them their experiences in grihastha life and encouraging the brahmacharis about how nice their brahmachari life is. Yes? Now, if any of those grihastas were to come to the brahmachari ashram with their beautiful young wife on their lap and they're embracing each other while he's talking, so you're all laughing just hearing about it. Can you imagine how you would laugh if you were seeing it? Well, that's what Chitraketu did. He laughed. He's saying this is too much. He understood the glory of Lord Shiva. He understood the glory of Parvati, but just the setting was very funny. Now, Parvati did not like anyone laughing at her husband. She considered it an offense. You are misunderstanding my husband. So she cursed. First she chastised him. You are uncivilized. You are harsh words. You have lack of discrimination. And yet you have such a big, high position. I curse you to live a hellish condition as a demon. Hare Krishna. Chitraketu, he got that curse. It didn't faze him. Now, this is worse than anything that anyone can say about you on the internet. Cursed him to die and become a demon with hellish life. Yes? Chitraketu was so surrendered with faith in the Lord. With a happy heart, he thanked Goddess Parvati. He said, thank you very much. Ultimately, I have the highest honor and respect to your husband. You misunderstood me. I didn't mean to say anything wrong, but your misunderstanding me must be the arrangement of the Lord. There must be something good for me to learn through this experience. So I'm very happy. My obeisances to you. Thank you. Now with your blessings, I'm happy to go to hell and become a demon. And he went. And he became Vrtrasura. Although he had the body of an asura and the association of asuras, and he had the duties of an asura, he had the same consciousness as Chitraketu. He had to perform his prescribed duties. But in his heart of hearts, he was just waiting for that moment when he could be reunited with Krishna. As Chitraketu Maharaj previously had darshan of the Supreme Lord, Shankarshan, he simply was longing for that moment in separation to be reunited with Krishna. Is there any questions? Yes, Kirtida Devi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The question is not about today's lecture, but last time you had given a lecture and I had raised my hand, but I didn't get an opportunity to ask the question. It is in connection with the same topic. You said last time that a person, when he's suffering the reactions of his past sinful karma, he to alleviate the suffering, he continues to commit more sinful karma. So I wanted a clarification on this, Maharaj.
Oftentimes that is the case. In the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, he describes that very often when we forget God, when we try to solve a problem in this world, very often the actual solution to the problem creates a bigger problem than the original problem. And we see that going on all over the place. Whatever has developed in technology and everything is to solve problems. We may have had problem that I don't like to ride around on a horse, so let me invent a car. Yes, that's a solution to a problem. You can go faster. No doubt it is a solution. But, horses, they weren't breaking down the ozone. They weren't causing the glaciers in this. Now, India, the Himalayan glaciers may dry up the Ganges and the Yamuna, but the glaciers in the North Pole, they're also melting. And Bombay may be converted to simply a bay. Unless it's bombed first. Unless something's done. New York City will be something else. That will be a new bay. Los Angeles, California, home of Hollywood. Can you imagine if the ice caps up there in Arctic Ocean start melting, there will be no Hollywood or Bollywood because they're both on the coast. This is what geologists are saying, environmentalists are saying. It's inevitable unless changes are made. But these massive problems that we're dealing with that seem so impossible to reverse, they can be reversed, but it's very difficult. They're all results of decisions that were made to solve other problems. Yes? There may be a problem that too many insects are eating our plants, our crops, and we want big crops, massive crops to make a lot of money. And also, manure and that type of fertilizer, it's not as potent as more chemical fertilizers. Yes? So it solves the problem. The crops are in more abundance. You make more money. But creates a problem. Cancer. According to the Medical Association, Cancer Association, I believe it was in about 1970, 1 out of 5 people were getting cancer. In the 1980s, it was 1 out of 3 people. In the 1990s, they predicted 1 out of 1.5 people practically are going to die of cancer. No, it's actually 1 out of 2. Right now, they say if things are as they are now, 1 out of 2 people will die of cancer. And everybody knows that one of the greatest reasons for cancer is air pollution, pollution in food, pollution in water. And all these pollutions are results of trying to solve certain problems. And they did solve those problems, but bigger problems are created. So to be responsible, human life is meant for responsibility. We are meant to solve the problems of the world in a way that is shreyas, not prayas. with a vision of the future. Prayas means we solve the problem because we want it now. We'll profit if we get it now. And there's competition to do it, to profit to do it now. But human beings are meant to be responsible to really think about the future. We have to solve the problem in a way that's ecologically balanced, that's socially balanced, that's karmically balanced. And ultimately, Krishna says in Gita, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yat johoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi konti yat tat kurushva madarapana. If we do it in a spirit of loving devotional service to the Lord, then we have to do it the right way. Then we not only create solutions to the temporary problems in this world, but we create a solution to the biggest of all problems. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosha nudarshanam. The greatest problem is birth, old age, disease, and death, which is all due to the problem of ignorance of the soul and not living in harmony with the real intentions of the soul. When the soul is enlightened, it will live in perfect harmony with God, with love of God and compassion to all of God's people. That is the nature of the soul. When we work on solving that problem within ourselves, we not only can help solve many of the problems in this world, but we solve the problem of birth, old age, disease, and death. And that is what Srimad Bhagavatam, this scripture, is teaching. And it is for this reason that we try to cleanse the ecology of our own hearts by sincerely chanting the holy name. Does that answer your question? I knew it was not going to answer her question. Why does the person continue to commit more sinful karma even though he's already suffering due to his or her past sinful karmas? Yes. Because of those sinful karmas, there is that inclination, that addiction to those activities. Arjuna asked the same question to Krishna. Why, even after suffering so much due to sins and knowing it's wrong, why does even an intelligent person seem he's practically pushed and forced to engage in sins again and again and again? Huh? That's what, same question. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna shamadbhava. It's because of this lust, because of this selfish personal desire that's in our heart, that pushes us. Dhyayato vishayan pungsang sangasteshu bhajayate. What is it? Sangat kama krodha bhajayate. Krodhat bhavati samohat samoha smriti vibrama. Smriti brahmshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. Krishna explains the whole system. In the beginning, we want to enjoy. Yes? From that enjoyment, from that lust to enjoy, we experience some pleasure. Then we become attached. Yes? We become attached to that pleasure. But because the nature of everything in the world, the pleasure is temporary. When it is frustrated, there is anger. When we contemplate on the objects of the senses, attachment develops. The whole thing is our consciousness, what we contemplate. That is the seed of everything that happens in our life. If you contemplate the objects of the senses, attachment comes. From such attachment, frustration. When we lose it, there's anger. Yes? From anger, our memory is bewildered. When the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, we engage in abominable activities and fall down again into the material pool. That is the system. What is the solution? Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. If we contemplate God, yes, instead of contemplating the selfish pursuit of sense enjoyment, then we are solving the problem at the very root. But even if you become a very staunch moralist, but if you're contemplating the objects of the senses, it's just a matter of time till that contemplation impels you to engage in those selfish activities, those karmic activities. So tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara tasehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtata. One must restrain one's senses from engaging in those immoral, sinful activities, but simultaneously we must learn to fix our consciousness on God, to contemplate spiritual meditations. Yes? That is real intelligence. That is real solution to the problems within our own lives. And each one of us, either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. We all have a great responsibility in this world. Does that answer your question? Actually. Thank you. Now I can fly to Italy tonight very happily. I actually answered Kirtida Mataji's question to her satisfaction. This is very special. I feel that the Lord is showering blessings upon all of us today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.